Good evening. I'm Jay Barth. I'm the Chief Education Officer for the City of Little Rock, and we're thrilled that you're with us this evening for a town hall about the community school model that we are in the process of implementing here in the City of Little Rock. With me this evening is Mr. Darian Smith. Darian is the Executive Director for Elementary Education for the Little Rock School District, and he has really been my partner on this journey as we implement community schools. And indeed, it's crucial to note this is a partnership between the City of Little Rock and the Little Rock School District. I want to thank a variety of groups who were crucial in co-sponsoring this event tonight. We are at the Central Arkansas Library System's Hillary Rodham Clinton Children's Library, and we thank them for their support. Arkansas United, the League of Women Voters of Pulaski County, the Urban League of Arkansas, Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families, and the City of Little Rock's Commission on Children, Youth, and Families, and the Community Programs Department. We thank all of them for their support. I also wanted to note that we are very conscious of our outreach to the Latinx community. There's a crucial part of the city and of the Little Rock School District. I want to note that I did an interview with La Opinion, the bilingual newspaper that posted yesterday. And so if you go to laopinionnewspaper.com, you will be able to see that in Spanish and English there. And we will continue our outreach to our Spanish-speaking community as well. You know, Darian, I have been in this role as Chief Education Officer for about 6 months, and under the leadership of Mayor Frank Scott Jr., we really practice a whole community, whole student approach to education. And that approach recognizes that the responsibility for running schools is in the hands of the schools themselves, whether that's the Little Rock School District, the Pulaski County Special School District, the charter and private schools, and the higher ed institutions. But a city is healthy only when its schools are healthy. And therefore, the city sees itself as having a crucial role in supporting the students in those schools so that they can be the best they can truly be. And so a whole community exists when students are whole, and whole students can only thrive in a supportive community. And so that's our job. And we see this endeavor, the community school model, as a real centerpiece of this whole community, whole student approach. Now, my job as Chief Education Officer, I do work with from birth through higher ed, but a real important focus of my energy and our energy in the city has been on the community school model. And so what we're going to do tonight is talk a little bit about the community school model, but importantly, this is a town hall, although it's a virtual one. We hoped months ago that this would be in person. It's not, it's virtual, but we still want your comments, your questions. If you're on YouTube, please post those in the chat box. If you are on Facebook Live, please also post those there, and we will be sure that all of those questions get answered along the way this evening. Now, the community school model has 4 key pillars that I think are crucial to really understanding how this very different way of delivering traditional public education operates. The first of those pillars is really the development of wraparound services that meet the individualized needs of students. Okay? Now, these wraparound services might include physical health services, behavioral health services, in some of the food deserts that are part of our community. It also might need enhanced meal services to try to fill some of those voids that are left in a food desert. And so, importantly, these services are wrapped around to help support the students so that they can truly be the best they can be, so they can focus on their learning in those school settings. The second key pillar of the community school model is recognizing that the school day doesn't just go from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. and the school year doesn't go those 180 or so days a year, but instead we have a responsibility, a duty to offer enriching activities to be sure that there is learning going on in the after-school hours and throughout the summer as well. And so those out-of-school learning experiences might include after-school dance classes. They might include tutoring of students in the after-school hours. They also, in the summer hours, might include a variety of activities that are enriching, including things like our Frankly Reading Summer Literacy Program, which unfortunately, because of the pandemic, was not able to be offered this year, and we've taken a different approach when it comes to elementary literacy. The third key pillar of the community school model is really seeing the school not just as a place for teachers and students, but instead as a place where the entire family and the entire community can come together and gain access to those services that they need so that they can be their best, and so that the neighborhood in which children are coming of age are healthier, brighter, so that that is a more invigorating, enriching place to live. And so that might include English language classes for English learners. That might include digital literacy courses for parents and community members who lack necessary computer skills. It may be access to legal services so that family members who need advice about their interactions with their landlords, that might be offered in those schools. Now, importantly, every community school is going to look different because the needs of the students and the needs of the community that operate and live around those schools, they're going to be different. And so every community school is going to look different. And the crucial stage of the process of building a community school is being sure that we get a good understanding of what the needs of those communities are. And we'll talk more about that needs assessment process in just a minute. The fourth pillar of a community school really comes down to how the school is run. Of course, at the end of the day, importantly, the principal and other school leaders, they are ultimately responsible for the teaching and learning process, and importantly, they are crucial to being sure that a world-class education and a world-class curriculum are offered in those schools. But especially when it comes to these other three pillars, it's really important that there be a collaborative leadership model that includes student voices, teacher voices, parental and community member voices, so that that is thought of as an ongoing process of getting it right for the students, for the parents, for the teachers, and for the broader community. Now, there's a really crucial person who's going to play a key role in any of these community schools, and so that is a community school coordinator, and that is a staff member who is really dedicated to being sure that this community school model comes to life in every one of these schools. And Darian, we have some exciting news. For a week or so, we have had the community school coordinator positions online, and you want to talk a little bit about that role and talk a little bit about that process.
Yes. So thank you, Dr. Barr. In its simplest form, the community school coordinator will be the person who will be developing the partnerships between a number of entities that will be working within the school to ensure that all students and families, particularly those students and families identified who are needing that additional support in the areas, to have access to resources to support the needs in those families and in that community. So we posted the position last week. It's been posted for over a week now, and we've had over 30 applicants. But it's not too late to apply if you're interested in that. You can go to the Little Rock School District website, select the tab that says Employment/HR, and follow the directions on how to apply for a job in our district. And we've had 30 applicants so far. So tonight, the position closes at 12 midnight. So if you're interested, please make sure you go to our website and apply tonight before midnight.
Indeed, and we'll say that again before we
Yes.
we leave the air tonight. And that person's in each of these community schools, that person's role is going to be bringing these pillars of the community school model to life, and building the key partnerships that are fundamental to making the community school model work, and being sure that the students and community members are getting the needs met that they have. Now, why are we so excited about the community school model? We're really excited because it really does create a system of supports for students and community members. And there is now lots of evidence that community schools work. We've got increasing empirical evidence from around the country that the community school model works. And perhaps the most expansive research that's been done has been done on the community school approach in New York City, where there are now over 130 community schools in that large school district. The RAND Corporation released a study just a few months ago looking at community schools in New York and comparing them to very similar schools demographically that were not offering the community school approach. And in that study, the RAND Corporation's researchers found several things. First off, in community schools, absenteeism rates start to go down quite quickly. Students want to be at school. Students feel that their needs are being met in school, and absenteeism rates start to go down. In addition, disciplinary incidents also start to drop. Students start to feel that they are part of a community, and there is less likely to be disciplinary challenges. And then finally, we start to see academic progress and finally change in the trajectory of test scores as test scores start to improve. Now, that doesn't happen immediately because this is really building a set of steps that get to that goal of academic change and academic progress. But in the community school approach across the country, we're starting to see these kinds of success stories, not just in New York City, but really all over the country. And it's for this reason that we're seeing research-based evidence of success, is one reason that we're now able to use more federal dollars to help cover the costs that are essential to making community schools work. And we'll talk more about the funding of these programs in just a minute. Now, what have we done when it comes to investigating community schools and their implementation here in Little Rock? Well, Darian, myself, and I believe 6 other folks that included parents, teachers, counselors, another staff member from the city of Little Rock. We first went to Caddo Parish in Louisiana. That's in the Shreveport area. And we looked at a model there called the Communities in Schools approach. It's a community-based way of doing education. In that approach, there's a tremendous focus on being sure that the 10 or 12% of students in a school who are most challenged, that they are given case managers so that they can really get the attention they need and get the services they need that are outside that school. Now, all students in the school get some baseline of services, but this Communities in Schools approach really focuses on being sure that some of the most challenged students, based on the evidence at hand, will get the services they need. Darian, what did you like about that approach? What left you maybe with some questions about that approach?
What I liked about the approach at Shreveport was the success that they were having with individual students that they had identified. There was one student in particular that we got a chance to meet who had basically fallen off the radar, had stopped coming to school, was not being successful, and the school reached out to him through their the site coordinator who followed that student, and the student came in and shared with us that he felt secure and safe in school, and that he was going to graduate. He told us his graduation date, invited us to his graduation, but this was a kid who was almost 20 years old, who had fallen through the cracks, that through their process of case management, they were able to bring back into the school setting and put him on a track to graduate.
And the rapport between the community school coordinator and that student and other students like him was really you could really see that warmth and genuineness of rapport between between the community school coordinator and that student.
Right.
What left you maybe with some question marks about that model?
Its reach. So when we're talking about how many students were they servicing or being able to service. Now, granted, there was a baseline service that all students had access to in the building, but those extended services of making connections with the student and then taking it further, it didn't have the outside the school connection. It focused on what they could do within the building. And so that was the limits that I saw for us, that we needed to have that outreach, that community pouring back into the school, and it truly becoming a community school from that standpoint.
And really becoming the hub for that
Correct.
community. And so as we continued our fact finding, we sought out places where that was really happening, those elements, especially a focus on after-school summer programming and really bringing the community in the schools. And so we did a trip to Albuquerque, to the Albuquerque Public Schools, which has now had a number of years of investment in the community school model. I believe they're now at about 30 community schools in that district. That is certainly larger than Little Rock School District, but they have built a real powerhouse of community schools there. Talk a little bit about what you liked when we were in Albuquerque.
Albuquerque took it to the next step of what we were just talking about, as far as the school actually truly being the center for the students' lives and their families' lives. The first school that we visited, one of the things that, as we were driving up to the school, they described the neighborhood as a war zone. That's what it's known as in the city. But when we got on that campus, you couldn't tell that by the staff, by the students' interactions, by how comfortable everyone was with what was taking place in the school. Truly, the school was the center of the community, and they were trying to transform the community through the school.
Yeah, and that was a middle school.
Correct.
In that case, and it was after school hours, and we walked through that school. First off, there is an Air Force base nearby, and there was a number of Air Force men and women who were there, who were part of a mentoring program that took place in that school, and you could see some of that really positive relationship between adults and middle school students. We saw some super cool after-school program. There was a cooking class going on. There was a dance class, which was it was obvious that students were really getting enriched by that. You walk through a vibrant community garden. It needed a little care and tending, but it was a really healthy community garden. And then we saw some of the other services available to the community as a whole.
Right. And so when we talk about that, they had a legal services within the building where students could fill out a form for their information. We had one student who was talking about there was a situation with his parents that he needed some guidance and some legal support. He filled out the form. The lawyers who are from the community college there, who are professors there, and a law firm, I believe.
Yeah, and also at the University of New Mexico law firm,
correct.
Law school. Yeah,
they would come in and provide those services free of charge for those families. The other thing that stood out is the principal was new to the school. He was also from out of the area, so he was not someone who was from Albuquerque. He moved in from out of state, and his testimony was that the site coordinator was a crutch for him. It has been one of those things that he would wondered why he's not been in his professional career before, that he couldn't see himself working in any other type of school other than a community school, based upon the services that were being provided to the students and the support that was being provided to the staff as well.
right. So we obviously were very drawn to that approach in a lot of ways, but I think we did have some lingering concerns about those students who fall through the cracks now, continuing to fall through the cracks in a community school if there is not that kind of case management approach. And so we do some outreach with schools around the country that have developed hybrid models that really kind of bring together both of these approaches, case management as well as some of the school as a hub of the community approach. Now, those approaches are attractive. I think you can understand that they might be a little more expensive because these are different skill sets that a case manager or a community organizer might have to make these models come to life. And so that's something else that we have looked at. What we would really like from you as parents and patrons of the Little Rock School District is some feedback on which of these approaches kind of makes the most sense for the Little Rock School District as we move forward with this endeavor of the introduction of community schools here in Little Rock. Here's a little bit about those next steps. We have been in ongoing conversations between the City of Little Rock and the Little Rock School District to really ascertain how many community schools we should can implement on in a good way, in a credible way for next year. We also have been, of course, talking about which schools should be implemented. Obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic has slowed down our work a bit. We expected to be and hope to be a little bit further along than we are at this point, but we are still dedicated to moving forward with the process of implementing 4 community schools in the Little Rock School District in the next academic year. The selection of those schools, we've taken several things into account. Obviously, we are very conscious of those schools that have had academic performance challenges in the past. We are also very conscious of being sure that we develop a system where there is a healthy feeder pattern where students might come of age in an elementary school, get used to going to a community school at elementary level, and then as they move into middle school, go into community school there, and then go into a high school that is a community school. And so one question we had last week was, well, are we just focused on community schools at the elementary level? This next year, yes. The answer is yes, but over the long haul, we envision this system kind of growing out and growing up these feeder patterns. The one thing that we've looked at, thought a lot about, and indeed it led to some tours of schools all over the community, is that there are certain school buildings in the Little Rock School District that are more amenable to having the community come in. Some of our school buildings are kind of small. They're 1950s buildings that don't have a lot of open spaces, don't have a lot of extra spaces. And so we've also had to be conscious of that issue as well. So anticipate that in the coming weeks, we will roll out the first 4 community schools for next year, but that will not be the end of the process. That will then set the stage for future growth in subsequent years. What will then happen in the fall is that the fall will be very much dedicated to this school-based needs assessment, this really multifaceted approach of capturing student voice, parent voice, teacher voice, community voice about what the needs of that school are, what the needs of those students are, what the needs of that neighborhood are, to really figure out what that community school should look like. And very importantly, every community school is going to look different because the needs of every school in every neighborhood are going to be different. And we will be focusing on getting it right in terms of this initial school-based needs assessment. But the needs assessment process doesn't stop there. It's an ongoing process because we know needs are going to change across time. And then finally, we will be in the process of hiring these 4 community school coordinators who will serve these 4 schools. And if folks came on a little late, Darren, you want to give the website again in terms of where folks can go to express their interest?
Yes. You go to the Little Rock School District website, which is www.lrsd.org, and you'll select the Employment/HR tab, and then follow down along the side where it says Job Opportunities. You click that and follow the directions to look for the job description for community site coordinator, and then how to apply.
Excellent. So please encourage you to do a very kind of different job. If you have this this heart for community transformation, this heart for working with students in a real and authentic way. This is a tremendous opportunity that being one of the first 4 community school coordinators will be. Obviously, those people will be working very closely with Mr. Smith because these are elementary schools, and then also, of course, with me as we figure out how to bring these services alive. Now, that probably leads to a question of how's this going to get paid for? The community school model is typically the costs of that are covered in a braided manner. There's a braiding of funding, some of it from the local school district, some of that may come from federal dollars or state dollars, but the school district is obviously playing a key role here, whether it's with these staff positions or in other ways. In the city of Little Rock's Board of Directors, working with Mayor Scott, have committed for this coming year $500,000 to be dedicated to implementation of the community school model in partnership with the Little Rock School District. And then finally, of course, there is support from foundations, from corporations, to provide those services and help cover the cost of some of those services that may be a little more expensive. What's also really important, it's not just about dollars and cents though, it's about community-based partnerships. And there are community-based organizations all across Little Rock who have this vision of serving students in this community better, and we are there to bring those partnerships to life, integrate those into these community school approaches in these individual schools to really make for more vibrant partnerships. So it is about money, but it's also about healthy community-based partnerships as well. Finally, we certainly are very conscious of bringing to light how powerful these partnerships can be across all the schools in the district. Yes, there are only going to be 4 schools starting next year where there is a funded community school coordinator, but we know that the healthiest, most vibrant schools in the Little Rock School District have these kind of vibrant community-based, this community-based education at work. And we're going to do what we can over the months and years ahead to really begin to elevate the role and the power of those community-based partnerships to really make those schools work better. We know it's important, and we know we need to be more conscious of the power of that to really create this whole community, whole school, whole student approach when it comes to education in Little Rock. I do want to put up my email address, jbarth@littlerock.gov. I know a lot of folks have reached out to me and say, I've got this idea of something that I think might be a good, play a good role in a community school. I've gotten some great ideas from some of those conversations. Please reach out, let me know those ideas, and of course, reach out and apply for these jobs as community school coordinators if you have that interest and the time is right in your life to do that. So, Darian, I want to encourage folks to ask questions and really begin. But we do have a couple of questions that actually came in right at the end last week that we didn't have a chance to deal with. One of which I hope we've answered tonight, which is this just about elementary schools? And what's the answer there?
No. Obviously, we're starting at the elementary level, but we're looking at feeder patterns that we can grow this where we're following students from kindergarten through 12th grade.
Exactly. But that's where we are starting initially. One other question that came in was, what's the role of the volunteers in public schools, which is a really important, has an important relationship between the community and schools and has been in existence for decades now, is a really vibrant part of the puzzle. VIPS is going to be a very important partner. Darian, you want to talk a little bit about VIPS's role now, and then we'll talk about it in the community school model?
Yes. Well, VIP's role is finding partnerships or solidifying those partnerships that we have in the district in individual schools. For instance, if I was still principal at Mapleville, to give an example. Mapleville United Methodist is a church right down the street from our school who are doing a lot of volunteering in our building, working in our after-school program, but we hadn't formalized that partnership. So VIPS came in and said, hey, Mr. Smith, this is a partnership. We need to formalize this. And so they go through the process of ensuring that we understand our role as a partner, our partner understands their role as a partner, and then they help foster that partnership through recognizing those partnerships at our community board meetings, and then following up with us each year to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure we hold on to our partners. And so I envision that to continue. So these community site coordinators would utilize VIPS to help them reach out into the community to identify those partners and those community resources that could benefit that community school.
Very important. And I got the list of partnerships at individual schools the other day from Tammy Blaylock at VIPS, and it's a really impressive list on this last point of really beginning to elevate those. It's also about individuals who serve as mentors and tutors in those schools. And we anticipate in the community school model, there are going to be a lot more folks coming into schools. And VIPS also plays a crucially important role in terms of background checks and being sure that those schools remain safe havens. And so the VIPS is probably going to have more work to do,
right.
Especially in these community schools, but they are going to be a really important partner. And I know that many people have done work with VIPS over the years, and we want there to be more of that activity moving forward. One question, maybe a question for me, will the city of Little Rock consider expanding this model to the Pulaski County Special School District in the future? I think we don't know what the future holds. We certainly want to see how well this project succeeds in the Little Rock School District. But obviously, as everyone knows, there is a lot of overlap between the city of Little Rock on its southeast side and its northwest side with the Pulaski County Special School District, and I think that could become a possibility in the future. But for the next few years, the focus is going to be on the partnership with the Little Rock School District. All right, here's a question for you. Given that the community school coordinator position is so critical to the success of the program, why is the salary range so low? And the question is the city willing to supplement the coordinator's salary? I'll let you take the first part, and I'll take the second part. There's a range, right?
There's a range. Well, as we looked at the available funds that we had currently, we had to identify the fact that we want to make sure that we can fund 4 positions. And so we had a pot of money, and with that pot of money, we had to create a job range or pay range that would fit into that funding source.
And I think it is important to note it's a range, right. And so of course there will be consciousness of the experience and the skills that individuals bring to the table, and I think we are working together, committed to getting the right people in those positions, and we know that salary is going to be part of that, and we do recognize that it's important for the salary to match the very interesting and challenging role here.
And one of the things I would like to point out, though, the salary range is based on an 11-month contract and not a 12-month contract as well.
Right. But a very good question, very important question. And I think my response for those people who are thinking about who are drawn to the position, say this would be a really cool thing to do, but maybe hesitant because of the pay range that's mentioned, don't let that hold you back. Go ahead and take that step of applying, and we will deal with that issue and commit to compensating folks fairly for what is going to be a very challenging job. It's also going to be a job that doesn't have traditional hours. You know, a lot of these activities are going to happen in the afternoons, in the evenings, and so it's going to be a very different kind of school-based job than most folks, and where it's going to have a lot of flexibility with it as a result.
Right.
Okay. encourage other folks to write in questions. Let me go back, see what we have from our questions last week. What results or outcomes are we hoping to see from this, from the community school approach in Little Rock? And Darian, I'll put it a slightly different way to you. How will we know if this is working or not?
I think there's three things that we can look at. Does it promote student achievement? Does it promote positive conditions for learning? And then ultimately, does it promote a safe and supportive environment? So those are the three things that we'll be looking at to measure our success rate for our community schools.
And on that last point, well, I think that's a really good list. That last one, is we want to gauge how this is working in the broader neighborhood.
Correct.
Is that we want not just the schools to be healthier environments in those buildings. We want the entire environment around that school to also be healthier. We want those to be safer places for kids to come of age so that they can focus on being their best as students, whether that's whatever gifts they have as students, so that they can focus on that and not be disrupted and, in some cases, sadly, somewhat traumatized by the environment in which they're coming of age. And so, a very important point. I mean, this is going to be a data-driven process. Everything that the City of Little Rock does is data-driven. Everything the Little Rock School District does is data-driven. We only do those things that have shown signs of success in the past, as this community school model has, and we will continue to track it. Now, I do think it's important to recognize, as we've seen in New York, it's not necessarily going to be immediate test score improvement. Right. But if we start to see attendance rates start to go up, if we start to see disciplinary infractions go down, that's going to be signs that this is working. It's on its pathway towards success. All right. Who will oversee the coordinators, the community school coordinators?
On a day-to-day basis, they'll report directly to the principal. But obviously, in coordination with the city and the district, Dr. Barth and myself will have an integral role in supervising our site coordinators.
Yeah, and Darian may do more of the supervision. I will do more of the partnership, right? And one of my jobs at the city is to really build those partnerships. And as we identify what the needs are in given schools, and there's a need for English as a second language training for parents, I will work with the community school coordinator to identify who those community partners are that might bring that to life in a school, and I will also have some of the responsibility for figuring out how to pay for it, how to fund it with some of those other funds, and it'll be a lot of creative work. A question, Ms. Galloway, can you give examples of the types of services that the community schools might provide for the neighborhood? Okay, and we can probably just start a whole list here.
Right. Obviously, it will be an extension of the services that are provided for the students in the school itself. When we were in Albuquerque, we were talking about the cooking classes for families, the financial literacy components for families, the legal services, dental services, health services, mental health services. So those are the things we envision that will be sprouting out into the community through the school itself.
And that's a good list of examples. I really do want to hit that first point. We saw in Albuquerque on a regular basis there they have what they have nicknamed homework cafes. I think we'll probably call them community school cafes, but a supper when folks who can come together and really build community, kind of grapple with some of the challenges that they're facing as parents who are helping their kids with homework, as teachers who are trying to get more insight into what's going on in the local neighborhood or inside those families. It's a really way of just building bonds around food. Obviously with COVID now, we're a little limited in terms of our ability to convene in that way, but we know that the day will come where we can begin to congregate again and do exciting things. Importantly, though, Darian gave a good list, but importantly, that list that is seen as most needed for that neighborhood, that will be built by the needs assessment process. These programs and projects are not going to be imposed on a school. They will be identified by the voices of those who are tied to that school as being important and helpful to creating a more supportive environment. And that's what's, I think, particularly exciting for me. Obviously, I've been, as a state board member, I was sometimes frustrated that things were done to the Little Rock School District rather than the Little Rock School District making its own choices. And I know many patrons in the district have been frustrated with the lack of a feeling of voice in the process. This model is all about the voices of the parents, the patrons, the community members, the students, the teachers making it work. That's what's so exciting. Every community school will have a community school advisory board that's made up of those representatives who will be making these decisions about and doing this evaluation of what's working and what's not working when it comes to these wraparound services, these after-school and summer programs, these opportunities offered to community members. So is there a timeline on the commitment to continue the process past the 2021 school year? I'll let you give a show.
I believe it is.
Yes.
We want to make sure that we do the right things on the front end so that we can build momentum so that they can continue to sustain itself and grow.
And the City of Little Rock, under Mayor Scott, with the support of the City Board of Directors, it is also committed to being sure that this lasts, and we will be developing a formalized structure so that that relationship is really not written into a contract, but written into a set of agreements so that we know that we're all on the same page. And to answer your question, Kelly, that this is a long time commitment. What we've seen in places like Albuquerque, it all started just like it is here, okay, with a few schools, a cohort of schools chosen strategically, and then that was this kind of slow build as almost like a snowball rolling through probably not through Albuquerque. The snowball analogy doesn't work very well, doesn't work super well here, but it is this kind of growth of energy around this model as more folks come to see it as something that enriches their kids' lives, but enriches the entire community. Okay? All right. You have any closing thoughts?
I would like to close with this. You said it. Community school is about building bonds, but it's also about breaking barriers. And so as we look at how we want to envision our community schools, how our community schools will develop and to grow, the basis will be building bonds and breaking barriers.
Wonderful. And I'm going to say, every time we go and visit a school, I just get so excited about what the possibilities are to really use this institution in the middle of a neighborhood to become better and brighter and more vibrant within the building, but also to really become a force for transformative change across that entire neighborhood. That's what's so exciting about the community school model, and I know that I am thoroughly ready to get to work to creating a very different kind of Little Rock School District in partnership with the city moving forward. I want to thank you all for joining tonight. Please email me your ideas. I got a number of good ideas in the aftermath of last week's program, and please stay in touch as we do this moving forward. Thank you.